Maria worked quietly, almost like she was part of the hotel walls. She moved from room to room in her plain uniform, her dark hair tied neatly at the back, a soft smile always resting on her face. She didn't talk much. She didn't need to. Every staff member at the hotel knew that if Maria cleaned a room, it would be spotless. She had been working at the hotel for years, and even though she wasn't rich, she carried herself with quiet grace. That Friday morning, everything felt a little different. The hotel was buzzing with excitement. A well-known millionaire family was arriving for a big charity gala. The event would bring many powerful people, businessmen, actors, celebrities, but it was the family that everyone whispered about. They were known for their luxury lifestyle, their expensive clothes, and their sharp tongues. Maria watched from the service hallway as black cars pulled up in front of the hotel. Out stepped the family, parents dressed in elegant designer outfits, their grown children in expensive suits and glittering dresses. Their luggage wasn't just heavy, it looked like a small mountain of gold boxes and silver cases. The staff lined up at the entrance, trying their best to look polite and welcoming. But the moment the family entered, their arrogance filled the lobby like perfume too strong to ignore. The father barked orders at the bellboys. The mother didn't even look at the receptionist as she demanded things. The daughter laughed at a young waiter who accidentally stumbled over her suitcase, and the son threw a look at Maria like she wasn't even human. Maria lowered her eyes and quietly pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway. She wasn't surprised. She had seen wealthy guests before, some kind, some rude. She just tried to do her job with dignity, but something about this family's laughter stayed in her ears. It wasn't just rude. It was cruel. When she entered their suite later that afternoon to deliver extra towels, she heard them talking loudly. "Did you see that maid? She looked like she's never seen a chandelier before," the daughter said, laughing. "People like her must think this place is a palace," the son added. Their mother smirked, pretending not to hear but clearly enjoying it. Maria quietly placed the towels in the bathroom and left the room with her head held high. She didn't say anything, not a single word. She had learned long ago that silence could be stronger than shouting. But inside, her heart beat a little faster. She wasn't hurt for herself. She was used to this kind of talk. She was hurt because she knew people like them thought the world belonged only to them. By evening, the ballroom was glowing with golden lights. Big chandeliers sparkled like stars. The floor shined so much that the reflections of the people walking looked like moving water. Maria and the other staff members moved quietly around the tables, making sure everything was perfect. Napkins folded, chairs straight, glasses shining. The millionaire family arrived again, dressed in gowns and suits that probably cost more than Maria could earn in a year. They laughed loudly at everything. When Maria bent down to fix a chair, one of the daughters looked at her and whispered something to her friend. Both of them giggled. Maria heard enough to understand. They were laughing at her uniform, at the way she looked, at the fact that she was working while they were celebrating. But Maria didn't let her face change. She kept working carefully, setting everything in order. When the daughter made a cruel joke, she smiled at the other staff and moved on. She didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She had learned that her quiet strength was more powerful than their noisy insults. What the family didn't know was that Maria had a secret. She loved music. She had loved it since she was a little girl. When the hotel halls were empty late at night, she sometimes sang softly while cleaning. Her voice filled the quiet corridors like warm light. One night, a manager had overheard her and told her she had a voice that could touch people's hearts. But Maria never had the chance to do anything with it. Life had pushed her into work and she accepted it with quiet strength. As she placed the last fork on the table, the daughter suddenly called out, "Hey, Maid, do you even know how to pronounce this menu? Or is it too fancy for you?" Her friends burst into laughter. A few people nearby looked away uncomfortably. Maria didn't answer. She simply nodded politely, then turned and walked back toward the service area. Her heart pounded in her chest, not with anger but with something deeper. She had always believed that everyone, rich or poor, deserved respect. And tonight, for the first time in a long time, something inside her began to rise. She went back to the staff hallway and leaned against the wall for a moment, closing her eyes. She could hear their laughter from the ballroom. She could also hear the soft music playing in the background. She didn't know it yet, but this night would not end like every other. The stage was being set not just for the gala, but for something no one in that ballroom could have predicted. Maria would not stay in the shadows forever. She was about to step into a moment that would change everything, not just for her, but for everyone who had underestimated her quiet strength. And as the laughter of the Millionaire family echoed down the hallway, Maria took a deep breath. She didn't know how, but deep down she felt it. This night would be different. Very different. The ballroom was full of light and laughter. The Millionaire family sat at the front table, where the most important people were seated. They were dressed like they owned the place. Their diamond jewelry sparkled under the lights and their laughter echoed through the room. All the guests were waiting for the charity gala to officially start. A famous singer was supposed to perform before the opening speeches, and everyone was excited for the big night. Maria quietly stood near the back of the room with the other hotel workers. She had finished setting the tables and fixing the chairs, but she stayed close in case anyone needed help. Her hands were folded in front of her and she kept her eyes down. She didn't like attention. The event planner suddenly rushed to the microphone at the side of the stage. She whispered to the host, her face pale with worry. Something had gone wrong. The singer who was supposed to perform was stuck in traffic far from the hotel. There was no backup. The host tried to stay calm, but the pressure in the room was rising fast. A charity gala like this had to be perfect. Maria could feel the panic in the air. The guests didn't know what was happening, but the staff did. The host whispered again, "We need someone to sing something, anything, just to hold the crowd until the performer arrives." But no one stepped forward. None of the waiters or hotel staff wanted to face that elegant crowd. Then the event planner turned her eyes toward Maria. She remembered a night weeks ago when she had heard Maria softly singing in the hallway. Her voice was beautiful, warm, and full of emotion. The planner's heart pounded as she whispered, "Maria, can you sing?" Maria froze. She hadn't expected this. Her first thought was to shake her head and say no. She was just a maid, not a performer. But then she looked around. Everyone was running out of options. The host's hands were trembling. The room was growing restless. She took a deep breath. I can try," she whispered. The planner's eyes widened with relief. "Come with me," she said quickly. Within minutes, Maria was standing behind the curtain near the stage. Her heart was racing so fast she could hear it in her ears. She wore her plain uniform, not a sparkling gown like the women at the tables. She had no makeup, no jewelry, nothing to make her shine except her voice. The host walked to the stage, smiled at the crowd, and announced that they had a surprise performance before the official singer arrived. The guests clapped politely, curious. When Maria stepped onto the stage holding the microphone, the room fell silent. Not because they were impressed, but because they were surprised. A maid on stage was something no one expected. The millionaire daughter who had mocked her earlier leaned back in her chair with a smirk. She whispered something to her brother, and they both laughed quietly. They were ready to be entertained for the wrong reasons. Maria's hands were cold. For a moment she thought about walking off. But then something inside her said, "This is my moment. Don't run." The soft music began to play. She closed her eyes. And then she sang. Her voice rose gently at first, clear and strong like a soft breeze. It floated over the room, catching everyone off guard. The conversation stopped one by one. The laughter faded. Even the daughter, who had been ready to laugh, suddenly sat up straight. Maria opened her eyes and looked at the crowd. She didn't see rich people or expensive clothes. She saw faces, just faces like hers. Her voice grew stronger, filling every corner of the ballroom. It was rich and warm, full of emotion that could not be ignored. People turned their chairs to face her. Phones came out to record her. Some people leaned forward, their eyes shining as if they had just discovered something they would never forget. The millionaire father's jaw tightened. The mother blinked rapidly. They hadn't expected this. Maria sang as if the song was coming from deep inside her. She remembered the nights she spent cleaning empty halls, the quiet moments she had when no one noticed her, the way music made her heart feel alive. Every note was like a story. The daughter who had mocked her pressed her lips together. Her smirk was gone. Her brother whispered something to her, but this time she didn't laugh. She couldn't. By the time Maria reached the last line, the entire ballroom was silent. It wasn't the quiet of boredom. It was the quiet of being moved, of being surprised, of being caught in a moment that no one had seen coming. Maria held the last note gently, letting it linger in the air like the last light of sunset. When the music stopped, there was no sound for a heartbeat. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the whole room erupted in applause. It wasn't polite clapping. It was real, loud, and full of respect. People stood from their chairs. They cheered. Some even whistled. Guests with sparkling jewelry were on their feet for a maid in a plain uniform. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She had never stood on a stage like this before. She had never felt this kind of attention. But it didn't scare her. It felt right. The event planner rushed to the side of the stage, tears in her own eyes. She whispered, "Maria, you were amazing." Maria smiled shyly. She didn't know what to say. She looked at the crowd and saw faces she would never forget. And then she saw the Millionaire family. They weren't laughing anymore. They weren't whispering cruel things. They were frozen in their seats, their faces stiff, their eyes wide. The daughter slowly lowered her head, embarrassed. The mother avoided looking at Maria. Maria didn't say a single word to them. She didn't need to. Her voice had said everything. The host returned to the stage and took the microphone. His voice was warm. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "I think we can all agree we just witnessed something truly special tonight." The crowd cheered again. Maria could hardly believe it. She stepped off the stage with her heart pounding, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from something bright and strong. She had been invisible to them. Now, they could not ignore her. For the first time in her life, Maria realized that a person's true worth is not shown by their clothes or their job. It is shown in their courage, their heart, and the light they carry inside. She had taken the microphone as a maid, but she had left the stage as someone unforgettable. Maria stood behind the curtain, her hands still trembling from what had just happened on stage. The sound of clapping and cheering still echoed in the ballroom. She had never felt anything like this in her life. For years, she had been invisible to the guests who came through those golden hotel doors. They walked past her, threw orders at her, or ignored her completely. But tonight, everything had changed with just one song. As she slowly stepped out from behind the curtain, the event planner hugged her tightly. "Maria, you were incredible," she whispered. "Do you hear them? They're still talking about your voice." Maria peeked at the crowd from the side. The Millionaire family that had mocked her earlier sat stiff in their chairs. Their loud laughter had vanished. The daughter's confident smile was gone, replaced with a shocked expression. The father's usual air of control had cracked, and the mother kept her hands folded in her lap, avoiding everyone's eyes. The host returned to the microphone, still smiling from ear to ear. "I think we can all agree that was one of the most beautiful surprises of the night," he said. "Ladies and gentlemen, please give one more round of applause to Maria." The clapping started again, louder this time. Guests turned in their seats, some even standing to see her more clearly. Maria's cheeks turned warm. She was still in her plain maid uniform, holding the microphone with nervous hands. She didn't look like a star. But in that moment, it didn't matter at all. People weren't looking at her clothes. They were looking at her. A famous music producer who had been seated at one of the front tables leaned toward the event planner. He asked for Maria's name and background. The planner introduced them. The producer extended his hand to Maria with a warm smile. "That was beautiful," he said kindly. "Do you have any idea how special your voice is?" Maria shook her head shyly. "I've only ever sung while working. I never thought—" She stopped, unable to finish her sentence. He looked at her with steady eyes. "I've worked with many singers. What I heard tonight is not ordinary. If you want, I can help you. You don't belong in the shadows, Maria. You belong on a stage." Maria blinked in disbelief. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. Opportunities like this didn't come to people like her. She was just a hotel maid, but standing there, surrounded by applause, something deep inside her whispered, "Maybe this is the beginning of something new." Meanwhile, the Millionaire family finally stood up and approached her. The daughter, who had mocked her earlier, looked down at the floor as she spoke. I didn't know you could sing like that," she said softly. Her voice wasn't as loud or proud anymore. Maria simply smiled politely. She didn't hold anger. She didn't need to. Their faces already showed their regret. The father cleared his throat, trying to act casual. "Well done," he said. It was short and stiff. He wasn't used to being the one giving respect. But now it was impossible for him not to. Maria nodded, still calm. She didn't need their approval. She had already earned something far bigger tonight. the respect of everyone in that ballroom. After the gala ended, many guests came to talk to her. Some asked about her background, some thanked her for touching their hearts, and some even asked to take pictures with her. Maria could hardly believe it. She had spent years blending into the background, but tonight she was the center of attention, not because of money or fame, but because of her voice. Later that night, when the ballroom was quiet again, Maria walked through the hotel lobby alone. The shiny floors reflected the soft lights above. It was the same hotel she had walked through thousands of times before, but everything felt different now. She wasn't just Maria the maid anymore. She was Maria, the woman who made a room full of strangers fall silent. She sat down on one of the benches near the window and took a deep breath. She thought about her childhood, those nights when she sang in the dark to comfort herself. She thought about her mother, who always told her that a gift, no matter how small, should never be hidden. Tears formed in her eyes, not from sadness but from quiet joy. The next morning, her story spread quickly among the hotel staff. Everyone was talking about it. Some of the workers had seen her performance live. Others watched videos that guests had recorded on their phones. They looked at her with pride and excitement. "Maria, you were amazing," one of the bellboys said as she walked in. "I didn't even know you could sing," another added. Maria smiled shyly. She wasn't used to attention, but it felt good. It wasn't fake or forced. It was real. Around noon, the famous music producer returned to the hotel to talk to her. He offered to help her train and give her a chance to record her voice professionally. Maria didn't know what her future would hold, but she knew this moment was something she couldn't ignore. She didn't want to let fear stop her anymore. Meanwhile, the Millionaire family checked out of the hotel quietly. There was no loud laughter this time, no cruel whispers. They avoided eye contact with most of the staff. They had learned something too. Their wealth didn't make them better than anyone. That night, a woman they had mocked had shown them a lesson they would never forget. Before they left, the daughter turned back once. She saw Maria laughing with her coworkers. For the first time, she didn't feel above her. She felt small, embarrassed, and humbled. Maria went back to work that day, but with a new light in her steps. She still carried her cleaning cart down the hallway, still folded towels, still wiped mirrors. But now people smiled at her differently. She was no longer invisible. She didn't quit her job right away. She took her time, trained her voice with the help of the producer, and prepared for a future she never thought she could have. Months later, she stood on a stage again, this time not in a maid uniform but in a beautiful, simple dress, holding a microphone with confidence. People came to hear her sing, not by accident but because they wanted to. The applause was just as loud as that night at the gala, maybe even louder. And somewhere in the crowd there were people who whispered, "That's her. That's the maid who stunned everyone that night." Maria never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the long hours she spent working quietly while others looked down on her. But now she walked with her head high. She proved to the world and to herself that greatness doesn't need a rich name, shiny clothes, or expensive jewelry. It just needs courage and heart. That night at the gala had changed everything. It turned a quiet maid into someone unforgettable. It silenced the people who mocked her and inspired the people who believed they didn't matter. And Maria? She carried her voice forward not to prove anyone wrong, but to remind herself that she had always been enough. The world had finally heard what was inside her all along.